Somewhere between darkness and truth, there are people who vanished without a single goodbye. Welcome to the place where unsolved mysteries breathe again, where we reopen the cases time tried to bury. Every town has its secrets. Some are whispered in the night, some are buried deep beneath the ground, and some are hidden in the fog. Ravenwood is one of those towns, a place where the mist doesn't just cover the streets, it hides the shadows, and sometimes it swallows people whole. 17-year-old Hannah Lewis disappeared last night. No signs, no witnesses, nothing, just the fog. I'm Emma Carter, investigative journalist, and I came here to find out what happened. But as soon as I stepped off the train, I realized this wasn't just a missing person case. This town doesn't forget, and the fog, it watches. The train rolled into Ravenwood Station just as the first tendrils of fog were slipping through the trees lining the tracks. Emma stepped onto the platform, the cold biting through her jacket. The mist was thick enough to blur the edges of the buildings, turning familiar shapes into ghostly silhouettes. Her boots crunched on the gravel, each step sounding unnaturally loud in the dense silence. The only other sounds were the distant caw of a crow and the faint, persistent hum of the river somewhere beyond the fog. She walked toward the center of town, taking note of every detail. The cracked sidewalks curling like dried leaves, the paint peeling off the clapboard houses, and the street lamps that glowed dimly, their light swallowed almost instantly by the haze. Every corner seemed to hold a shadow that shouldn't be there. As she passed the old general store, its windows dark, she caught a movement, something shifting behind the curtains. Emma froze, squinting. Nothing. Just the fog, she told herself, yet the sense of being watched prickled at her skin. Her first stop was the Lewis residence. Marlene Lewis opened the door before Emma could knock a second time. Her face was pale, eyes wide, holding a photograph of Hannah against her chest. She went for a walk?" she stammered, voice trembling. "She does this sometimes. And then she didn't come back." Tears welled in her eyes, and Emma stepped inside carefully, noticing the small details. A muddy boot print on the doorstep, the way a piece of paper had been caught in the fence, its edges damp and curling. Symbols were scrawled across it, smudged by the rain. They reminded Emma of something she had seen before. A journal from a girl who had disappeared 20 years earlier, tucked in the archives of the local library. The words from the leather-bound pages haunted her. "When the fog is thick, look to the shadows by the river." Emma began her interviews, starting with the neighbors. Mrs. Thompson, who ran the bakery at the corner of Main Street, was first. She spoke in a whisper, as though the fog outside might hear her. "She was walking down to the river," she said, voice shaken, "and I saw someone or something standing there, tall, unmoving, watching." The description sent a chill down Emma's spine. Later, she spoke with Hannah's friends. "She didn't seem scared," one said. "It was like the fog was calling her, and then she vanished." Each account added layers of unease, building a mosaic of fear that seemed almost tangible. As the day wore on, Emma walked the streets, recording every sound and detail. The soft slap of fog-soaked leaves underfoot, the occasional whistle of wind through broken windows, the distant murmur of the river pressing against unseen banks. She visited the docks, where abandoned boats swayed with a ghostly rhythm. The creak of wood echoing unnaturally through the mist. She found a fragment of Hannah's jacket, caught on a post, damp and heavy, evidence that she was indeed here, somewhere close, yet invisible. Returning to the inn that evening, Emma reviewed her notes, recording her thoughts in a low, urgent whisper. Ravenwood does not forgive. It keeps its secrets in the fog, in the river, in the shadows. Hannah Lewis did not simply vanish. She was drawn into something older than this town, older than the river. And I, if I am to find her, must follow the shadows wherever they lead. Even in the quiet of the room, the fog seemed to press against the windows. Emma could hear the distant river, the whisper of leaves, and in the back of her mind, the unsettling sense of eyes watching from the mist, patient and unblinking. She leaned back, exhaling slowly, knowing this was only the beginning, and that the story, like the fog, would not release her easily. The morning fog clung to every surface in Ravenwood like a second skin. Emma Carter stepped out of the inn, inhaling the sharp, cold air, the scent of damp leaves and river water curling into her senses. Each breath felt heavy, saturated with the weight of the town's secrets. Her boots crunched on the cobblestones, each step echoing unnaturally, amplified by the muffling mist. The town seemed to hold its breath. Even the occasional bark of a dog from somewhere deep in the fog sounded hesitant, as if unsure whether to break the silence. Her first stop was the local diner, a small, dimly lit place where the townspeople gathered to drink coffee strong enough to ward off the chill and exchange stories they would never repeat elsewhere. Emma slid onto a stool at the counter, notebook open, recorder running quietly beside her. The smell of fried bacon mixed with the acrid tang of burnt coffee, a smell that seemed to permeate the entire town. She caught the eye of the owner, Mr. Thompson, an older man with a stooped frame and tired eyes. "I saw her last night," he whispered, leaning close as if the fog might overhear. "Walking along the river, calm, almost like she was expecting it. And then I saw a figure, just standing there, watching, didn't move, didn't blink, just there." His hand trembled slightly as he gestured vaguely toward the mist outside. Emma scribbled notes furiously, every word feeding a growing sense of dread. Next, she spoke to Hannah's friends, nervous teenagers who huddled in corners, afraid the wrong word would bring trouble. One girl spoke in a barely audible voice. She didn't seem scared. It was like she was being called by something. Another added, eyes darting toward the window. "I saw a shadow. It was tall, standing, waiting, and it disappeared when I tried to approach." Emma nodded slowly, absorbing the fragments, sensing a pattern. Each account painted a picture of a town suffused with unease, a town that had learned to live with shadows. By midday, Emma ventured to the riverbank. The fog was almost solid here, pressing against her coat, swirling around the dock pilings like restless spirits. She moved slowly, flashlight beam cutting a narrow path through the gray haze. The river whispered and hissed at the edges of her perception. Soft splashes, the murmur of unseen currents, the occasional metallic clang of an abandoned boat swinging against a piling. She spotted a scrap of Hannah's jacket, wet and heavy with dew, snagged on a jagged post. Her fingers traced the torn fabric, a tangible link to the girl's presence. Somewhere upstream, a crow cawed sharply, its echo swallowed almost immediately by the fog. Later, Emma made her way to the local library, a stone building that smelled of old paper, dust, and something faintly metallic. She combed through old newspapers, photographs, and archival documents, looking for the girl who had disappeared 20 years earlier. She found a leather-bound journal brittle with age, its pages filled with frantic handwriting. The fog does not forget. The river keeps its counsel. When it calls, the shadows will answer. Emma read and reread, the words weaving a thread from past to present. The disappearances were connected, she realized, patterns repeated like the turning of the seasons, persistent and methodical. As evening approached, she explored the old warehouse district. Broken windows reflected the dim light, the boards creaking under her careful steps. Inside, footprints in the dust hinted that someone had been here recently. Crates had been shifted, and on one wall were symbols scrawled in chalk, reminiscent of those she had seen at the Lewis home. She traced them slowly, the numbers and letters forming a map, a guide through the maze of Ravenwood's hidden paths, leading toward the river and the abandoned docks. Her heartbeat quickened, the fog pressing closer around her, as if the town itself leaned in to watch. Night fell, and the fog grew heavier, almost tactile, curling around her, dripping off eaves, wrapping the river in a gray blanket. Emma returned to the riverbank, the flashlight trembling in her hand. The water gurgled softly over rocks. Shadows twisted and stretched in the fog, and then movement. A figure half shrouded in mist, tall, unmoving, watching her. Her pulse raced, her breath quickened, but before she could step closer, the figure vanished, leaving only the whisper of the river and the rustle of dead leaves. Back at the inn, Emma spread her notes across the desk, photographs, scraps of paper, sketches of symbols, footprints, and diagrams of buildings and paths. She spoke into the recorder, voice tense but controlled. Everywhere I go, the fog follows. The shadows watch. I can feel it. Something in this town, in the river, in the mist, knows I am here, and it is patient. But I am patient too. I will follow the paths, trace the steps, uncover the secrets. Hannah Lewis will not vanish into the fog. That night, as Emma lay awake in the creaking inn, she could hear the town breathing outside her window, the river whispering, the fog shifting. Every creak, every distant cough, every sound of water against wood seemed deliberate. Ravenwood's secrets had been waiting for decades, and now they had her attention. She closed her eyes, and in the silence felt the shadows moving just beyond perception, patient, unblinking, waiting for what she would do next. By the time Emma reached the outskirts of Ravenwood, the fog had thickened into an almost tangible wall, pressing against every tree, building, and streetlight. It was as if the town itself were alive, watching, waiting for her next move. The streets here were cracked, uneven, overgrown with weeds, and littered with the remnants of decades-old debris. Every footstep she took seemed to echo unnaturally, swallowed and then returned by the thick mist. Emma tightened the straps of her backpack, feeling the weight of her recorder, notebooks, and the fragments of evidence she had collected. This was no longer simply a missing person case. The pattern was clear now. Hannah's disappearance was part of something larger, older, and far more deliberate. Her first destination was the Cunningham estate, an imposing mansion set on a hill overlooking the river. The family had dominated Ravenwood for generations, and rumor had it they controlled much more than property, influence over businesses, law enforcement, and even the fog itself, in a manner of speaking. Emma circled the perimeter cautiously, noting the rusted gates and broken windows, her flashlight slicing through the gray haze. A low wind whistled through the trees, carrying the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, and Emma felt the unmistakable chill of being observed. Inside an abandoned warehouse near the estate, Emma found evidence that the disappearances were not isolated events. Footprints in the dust, scattered personal items, and hastily scribbled symbols pointed to a systematic network, a hidden map spanning the town. Photographs were tacked on the walls. Hannah, the girl from 20 years ago, others whose names were lost to history. The patterns were undeniable. The fog, the river, and the shadows were all carefully used to conceal the victims, a network of secrecy maintained for decades by those in power. Emma discovered a hidden journal tucked beneath a loose floorboard. Its pages were brittle and yellowed, and the handwriting shaky but precise. It belonged to the survivor of the first disappearance. They watch the river. They move in the fog. They take what threatens their order. And yet, I remain, waiting for the day the truth will reach the light. The words reverberated in Emma's mind. The system had been in place for decades, evolving, adapting, patient. The disappearances were calculated, ritualistic even, preserving the family's hold on the town while keeping the fog's secret alive. Hours passed as Emma traced the movement of the missing girls through the abandoned buildings, warehouses, and riverbanks. Every detail confirmed the survivor's account. The Cunninghams' network was precise, the fog an ally in concealment, the shadows tools of control. The deeper she delved, the more she felt the presence of someone or something watching her. She heard soft footsteps echoing behind crates, the subtle scraping of metal, even the faint whisper of voices that seemed to drift from nowhere. Every sound heightened her pulse. Every shadow held the possibility of revelation or danger. She interviewed additional witnesses that day. A former dock worker, his hand scarred from years of labor, who spoke in a low, trembling voice about movements in the fog he had seen for decades. A teacher who had quietly observed students vanish without explanation, documenting everything in private notebooks. Each person added pieces to a mosaic of fear, control, and secrecy. One older woman whispered, "The fog protects them. The river keeps the balance. The shadows decide who survives." Emma felt the weight of the town pressing in as if she were walking through the living history of Ravenwood itself. As night fell, Emma approached the river, following a hidden path revealed by the survivor. The water was black and restless, curling around rocks and wooden pilings, whispering secrets that seemed almost sentient. Then she saw it, a figure, tall, still, motionless, watching her from the fog. Her breath caught. The figure was the survivor, signaling her forward. Together, they navigated the maze of hidden paths, abandoned docks, and forgotten warehouses. The network revealed itself in small, terrifying details. Trapdoors, hidden alcoves, remnants of personal items, clothing, fragments of letters. Everything had been meticulously planned to conceal the truth, to control, to maintain power. Finally, they found Hannah, trapped in a small, secluded building at the edge of the river. She was pale, trembling, eyes wide with fear. The fog had hidden her. The system had trapped her, yet she was alive. Emma knelt beside her, whispering reassurances, tracing the contours of her face in the dim flashlight glow. Hannah's memories were fragmented, flashes of fog, shadows, and quiet whispers guiding her along paths she could not name. The survivor explained the final pieces of the network, how the disappearances were orchestrated, how the fog and shadows worked in tandem, and how the town's most powerful family had maintained secrecy for decades. Emma recorded everything: the layout of the network, the emotional truth, the intricate system of concealment, the psychological toll on the victims. She knew exposing the truth fully could shatter the town, yet leaving it hidden would allow the cycle to continue. She whispered into her recorder, "The town has layers, hidden by fog, protected by fear and power. I see now that the disappearances are not random. They are part of a system that has existed longer than anyone remembers. And if I am to save anyone else, I must follow these shadows step by step through the fog." As dawn approached, the fog began to thin, revealing the river's pale, trembling light. Emma watched Hannah and the survivor disappear quietly into the town's streets, safe, but forever marked by the shadows they had escaped. She realized that Ravenwood itself, the fog, the river, the silent observers, remained alive, patient, unyielding, and deep in the mist she sensed the watchers waiting for the next movement, the next whisper, the next secret to claim. The fog pressed heavier than ever as Emma followed the survivor through the hidden paths along the river. The air was damp, cold, almost viscous, clinging to her skin and coat. Every sound, the distant lap of water against pilings, the creak of broken boards, the whisper of wind through skeletal trees, felt amplified, charged with warning. Ravenwood itself seemed alive, anticipating every step, testing her resolve. Emma's pulse raced, but her focus was unshakable. Hannah's life depended on it. They reached the final cluster of warehouses, the heart of the Cunningham network. The survivor's flashlight illuminated symbols etched into walls, remnants of previous disappearances, and maps detailing paths through the fog. Emma felt the weight of decades of secrecy pressing down, every detail a testament to a meticulously controlled system. She recorded every piece, knowing these would be crucial if the town's truth ever had to be exposed. Then they heard it, a subtle shift in the mist. A shadow moved, taller than human, fluid yet deliberate. Emma froze, heart hammering. The survivor signaled to proceed slowly. Inside the warehouse, they found traces of Hannah, a scrap of fabric, faint footprints, a lingering scent of fear. Every step closer made the tension unbearable, the air thick with anticipation. Then, in a small, dimly lit room, they found her, Hannah Lewis, pale, trembling, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and relief. Emma knelt beside her, whispering reassurances, brushing damp hair from her face. The survivor explained the final steps of the network, how the disappearances were orchestrated, the deliberate use of fog and shadows, the hidden rooms and false paths, the decades-long control maintained by the Cunninghams. Hannah's memories flickered in fragments, flashes of mist, indistinct figures, whispers guiding her through paths she could not name. Emma recorded every detail, her voice tight with urgency. This town has a rhythm, a hidden pattern. The disappearances are deliberate, part of a larger system that has existed for decades. If we are to stop it, we must understand it fully. Outside, the fog shifted again. The river whispered, carrying secrets unseen. Emma could feel the presence of watchers, remnants of the shadows that had maintained control for generations. The survivor guided her and Hannah carefully, retracing steps through the hidden paths. Every sound, the slap of water against pilings, distant animal calls, the occasional metallic clang of abandoned machinery, was amplified in the heavy mist, each echo a reminder of the town's vigilance. As dawn broke, the fog thinned just enough to reveal the river's edge, pale and trembling in the morning light. Hannah, shaken but alive, walked beside Emma and the survivor, each step heavy with exhaustion and relief. The network of shadows had been confronted, but not destroyed. The Cunninghams' control remained latent yet potent, woven into the very fabric of Ravenwood. Emma whispered into her recorder, "The river flows, the fog lifts, for now, but the town waits, patient, its secrets endure, and if we forget, the shadows will reclaim what is theirs." Returning to the inn, Emma spread her notes, photos, and scraps of evidence across the desk. Her mind replayed the night's events, the terror, the revelations, the fragile victory. She knew the story she would write would expose some truths, protect others, but the essence of Ravenwood, the fog, the river, the shadows, remained unbroken, waiting silently. Even as she drove away the next day, the town's memory lingered. The fog followed in her mind's eye, the whispering river echoing in quiet moments, shadows flickering just beyond perception. The case of Hannah Lewis had reached resolution, yet Ravenwood itself, its hidden paths, its patient watchers, remained as enigmatic, relentless, and haunting as ever. Emma understood then that some towns, some stories, never truly let go. The fog remembered, the shadows waited, and she, for all her courage and insight, would carry Ravenwood with her forever. Weeks had passed since Emma Carter left Ravenwood, yet the town remained with her, more vivid than any memory. She could see the mist curling over the riverbank, hear the subtle lapping of water against pilings, smell the damp earth as if she had never left. The shadows of trees outside her Boston apartment stretched in impossible ways, twisting and bending as if the fog had followed her across miles. Even in her most ordinary moments, walking down quiet streets, reading in the dim light of her apartment, or drinking coffee, she felt the presence of the town's unseen watchers, patient, silent, unyielding. At night, she would replay every detail in her mind, the hidden paths, the abandoned warehouses, the scraps of fabric, the scrawled symbols, the voices she barely caught in the fog. Hannah's pale eyes, the survivor's quiet guidance, the weight of decades-long secrets, all of it pressed against her consciousness like the thick mist of Ravenwood itself. She whispered into her recorder the only thing that felt tangible. Ravenwood does not release its own. Its memory is long. Its shadows are patient. The river, the fog, the hidden paths, they wait, and they remember everything. And though we may leave, the town never truly lets go. One evening, as she sat by her window, Emma noticed a slight movement in the corner of her vision. A shadow, almost human, flickered and vanished as quickly as it appeared. Her pulse quickened. Was it imagination, a leftover fear etched into her mind by the town? Or had a fragment of Ravenwood, the fog, the watchers, followed her here, marking her as part of its story now? She could not know. All she knew was that the memory of the town would never leave, and the fog's whispers would echo in her mind for the rest of her life. Even with Hannah safe, even with the case documented, Emma felt the weight of Ravenwood pressing in, reminding her of the patient, unseen forces that had ruled the town for decades. And in that lingering presence, in the silence after the recorder clicked off, she realized that some stories never truly end. The fog waits, always somewhere, patient and eternal. The shadows endure, and Ravenwood, in its quiet, watchful way, remains undefeated. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next videos. where we continue to follow the mysteries that have never slept. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next videos, where we continue to follow the mysteries that have never slept. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned.